What's up, everybody? Corey here. Back with another video for you guys. I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're staying clean, washing your hands and everything during this tragic pandemic that the world is facing. With that being said, I'm just going to jump right into my testimony. I want to tell you guys about what the Lord's done to me and how He's blessed me and how He's blessed those around me. From a young age, I was full of anger. I was full of hurt. A lot of things happened in my younger age that I didn't know why. I didn't know why I didn't have like the other kids. I don't know why I wasn't treated like the other kids. I didn't know why I didn't fit in like the popular kids. I built up a lot of anger and aggression inside of me. And, you know, it was like I was about 11 or 12, I believe. And the pastor of our church, you know, we went to church on, you know, Easter and Christmas and special occasions, and we go every once in a while because my mom really did want to bring us up in the church. And but we didn't know God. Our household were not firm in God's word. But we were told. My mom did her best, you know. She was not saved either, so she did her best to tell us who God was and the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. But we didn't know Him. So I was about 12, 13, and I went to Bible camp for my first time. And oh man, it blew my mind. I was on fire after that week at Bible camp. Oh man. I was just like, man, I did not know that someone gave their life for me to cover over my sins and my wrongdoings. I had no idea how good God was. And I found out how good He was. But at that moment, I was still just a kid. So I go back home and I go back to school and I'm hanging around with these kids that didn't grow up in a godly household, that their parents didn't teach them about God. So, you know, I hung out with them. I tried to fit in the best I could. You know, I thought that they were my friends, and I thought that they, you know, were gonna be there for me, and really it was just all bad. So I got into the drugs early on in life. I was partying about 7th, 8th grade, and so I was already living the party lifestyle, smoking weed and drinking and doing whatever. I hadn't got into the heavier drugs yet, but when I got into high school, you know, all this stuff continued with the partying and the drinking, and then one day the principal called me into his office. He said, "You can't be here no more. Just leave. We don't want you here. You don't come to school anyways. You don't come to class. You missed like 100 days out of the school year, and just leave." That's what he told me, and I was just like, okay, whatever, cool, you know. At that moment in my life, I really didn't care. So I met up with some people and started hanging around some people that were into heavier drugs, and that's when I got addicted to meth. And about, I want to say 16, 17 years old, I started smoking meth, and man, I just went down the drain. My whole life crumbled beneath me. I really didn't know who I was at the moment. I didn't know where I wanted to go with my life. I had set up a a flight to go to Job Corps. Right in the middle of all this, when I got kicked out of school and stuff, I was like, I gotta do something. Or I think someone, maybe my mom set it up for me. I can't really remember. But I had this flight I was supposed to get on to go to Job Corps. I wanted to be an electrician. And I went to the airport. My mom drove me to the airport. And I didn't get on the plane. Circumstances had it that, I didn't go. It was a mistake. I wanted to live the party life. I wanted to keep doing drugs. I wanted to keep drinking. I wanted to keep smoking. I wanted to keep doing all this stuff that I wouldn't have been able to do when I went there. So I didn't get on the plane. I literally ran from my mother, ditching her in the airport, until the plane left. Because once the plane left, I was out. I was scot-free. So my mom chased me down. She finally found me out in the parking lot, out in the car garage, and she's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You're throwing your life away. This is a great opportunity." At the moment, I didn't care because I was on drugs. All right. So, yeah, I used the drugs. I just went into this drug lifestyle of just covering up my anger and my hurt with the drugs and the alcohol and whatever I could numb myself with. I started stealing when I couldn't provide for my habit. I couldn't keep a job because I was a drug addict. I'd have a job for a little bit, but then I'd call out because I was dope sick. I'd been up and fallen out, and so I didn't go to work, and so I started stealing from my loved ones and from people that were really close to me and people I cared about. I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of today, and after that, a homie came to me, and it was one of my homies from high school that we used to kick it all the time, and smoke out and do all this crazy stuff together. And he came to me. This was after we had had a different life. I had a different life. He had came to know the Lord, and he shared it with me. He said, "You know what? God changed me, and He can change you, brother." And he shared the love of Christ with me again. And I had an idea of who Christ was because I let Him into my life, and I asked Him into my heart at Bible camp, and but I fell away from the Lord, and I started walking away from the faith, and it was horrible life I was living at the time. So I was just like, when he came to me with this good news about how Yahweh gave His Son Yeshua to die for me and to cover over my sins, I'm like, I heard about this before. I know this Christ you're talking about. So I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with the drugs. I'm done with this lifestyle partying. You can take it all away, Lord. I gave my life to the Lord, and my brother baptized me with my pastor over in Lewiston, Idaho, and in the river. It was an awesome, wonderful experience. I missed that pastor. He was a great man. He was a good-hearted man. He would be up there at the pulpit just preaching his heart out, just crying. He had the love of Christ in him, and I'll miss that man. But he went to another church and stuff. But yeah, from there, you know, I was on fire for about a year or two for the Lord, and I was just telling everybody about Jesus, you know. I was like, check it out. Have you heard the good news? How he died for me and you? So yeah, it was on. And then I moved back to where I'd grown up, to the town where I was doing the drugs and stuff, and I started hanging out with those people again, and I slipped, I backslid right back into it, and it started to just destroy me. It started to eat at me. It was worse this time than it was the first time. The first time, I didn't have a relationship with the Father. I had came to know him in Bible camp, but that was when I was a kid, and the second time I come to know the Lord, it was when I was an adult. So now I really knew, and I knew the love of the Lord, and I had a deep relationship with Yahweh, and it was crazy. It was crazy. The second time I went back to the drugs, it sucked me in even deeper. I mean, I was stealing from people, my loved ones. I mean, I would go to their house for family gatherings, and people would be like, oh, just watch out, you know, watch over your stuff, you know, Corey's coming, you know. I felt that from them, you know, because I was a thief. I was a known drug addict. My family, I dishonored my family, and it was word all around town, you know. People knew, and I felt horrible. I hated who I had become. I wasn't the father I wanted to be. At this moment, I had a daughter already, and I had one on the way, and I hated who I was. I wasn't able to be the father that I know they needed in their life. I couldn't be the dad I wanted to be. And quite honestly, my oldest daughter, she'd seen me go through some bad times, and she was frightened of me. A lot of the time, she did not like to be around me because of how I acted when I was on the drugs and how I acted when I was drinking. So anyways, that lasted for a long time, and I kind of said, well, you know, I'm done with the drugs. I'm done with the meth. Maybe I'll just start drinking. Yeah, that will help. That will help me, you know. At least it's legal, and you know, it's not gonna mess up my life and stuff. And sure, I was still dabbling in the drugs when I was drinking, but I wasn't doing the drugs nearly as bad as I was. I had substituted the meth for the alcohol at the time, and so then I started getting in this addiction of alcohol, and I became an alcoholic, and I needed a drink when I woke up, and I needed to drink all day. It was just like the drugs, but with a different substance. So I was always at the bars. I was blowing my money. I'd blow $50 to $100 a night at the bar, you know, and wondering where all my money's going. I'd get my paycheck and it'd be gone, and like, you know, the first week, you know, and I wouldn't have anything to show for it, and I was lost. I was drinking. It came to a point where I was blacking out every time I drink, and I don't know why that was. Maybe it was the chemical imbalance from all the meth I used. But yeah, I'd get to a point where I'd have just a couple drinks and I'd be blacking out. And that's when it really got scary, because I didn't know what had happened the day before. So it was a vicious cycle. pain and covering up that shame and that hurt. But I longed for the Lord. I'd look at pictures of me during my baptism and I'd cry out to God and I'd say, God, if you hear me, I want this life. I want your love back. There was nothing like it. None of the drugs, all the alcohol, nothing compared to your love, Father. I'd cry, and I'd look at that picture, but I couldn't help myself. I couldn't help myself. I had an addiction. Satan had his claws in me, and at that moment I wasn't going nowhere. I was headed for a very dark place. I was either gonna be dead or in prison within the next 5 to 10 years. And I believe that. Satan wanted to kill me. There was moments when I was sleeping with women that had husbands. There was a long period of time I was seeing a woman that was married to a guy that was known to be very dangerous and very, very heartless. And my buddies and everybody would be like, what are you doing, dude? You got a death wish? What are you doing messing with that man's wife, man? He's gonna kill you. He's gonna come after you. So for a long time I was looking over my shoulder. I was looking over my shoulder wondering when he was gonna come get me. Because it was all bad. And I didn't care. I had no feelings. I had no conscience over the wrongs that I was doing and how I was wronging people. And to this day, I don't know how I made it to this point. I should have been dead or locked up. But the Lord obviously had angels watching over me because I'm here today telling this story. So after all that commotion, all that hurt, all that just anger and bitterness and just guilt and shame, because I knew that I was living wrong. I knew that I was living in sin. One morning, I believe it was Easter Sunday. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. I woke up one morning and I was like, I don't want to live this life no more. I was done with this life. So what I did was I got up and I knew there was a church down from this place where I was staying with a buddy, and I just got up and I went down to the church, and I felt like someone was calling me.